Morning. Don, you might as well stay here and do this too. You did everything else. I had a blessing the other day that I want to share with you. It may not seem like much to you, but it meant a lot to me. Just to get out of the house, you all know what that's about. I took a little road trip, went over, a couple places, brought by that I'd been before. And I got to thinking about Camden Church. Remember Camden Church? If you saw it, remember on the news here, what year? It's probably been, gosh, it may have been even 2 years ago. Camden Church caught fire. It was on television and all that, and it burned. And so, of course, everything is up in the air, and the church has been there, and it did a lot of damage. Well, this is where I grew up. I mean, as a little guy, I was there, and the little Sunday school teacher, we were right down there, you know. I remember, and I taught Sunday school back there, and I, you know, with a youth group back there, and all these memories were there, you know. And I've been wondering about that church, what was going to happen. Now, I know I've preached many a time about the church is more than just a building, and I've repeated that little refrain several times. But the truth of the matter is, I was really hoping that the church stayed like it was. But it was up in the air. They only had so much money, and they were trying to decide exactly what they were going to do. And they finally decided, and it was controversial, and it was still up in the air for a long time, it was anyway. But I went by the church, and guess what they were doing? They were repairing it. They're going to restore it. And I went in, and I just, you know, they had everything out inside, and the damage that was done was not as extensive as I thought it probably was. And so it just did something for me. You know, my church, I mean, that will always be, in some ways, my church. That's where Carol and I met, and where the kids were baptized, and all of the things that goes along with the church. And so I know that the church is more than just a building, but it also is the building. And I know a lot of you who have been here all your lives, this church as a building is important to you. And that's okay. Don't ever deny that fact. It's okay, because we identify with it. But at the same token, it is more than that. It's more than just that building that they're going to repair at Camden. It's all those memories that I have, all that it means to me as I grew up in the church. And so I'm thankful for all that. I'm really glad they're going to put it back, please, the degree like it was. Okay. Donna's already done that, but I want to do it again. Welcome on this first Sunday of the new year. First Sunday of the new year. I don't know about you, but I'm glad that 21 is here. 20 has been a real struggle for everyone, including us as a nation and as a world, and it's not over. I was listening to NPR, as I always do, it's all I listen to. And they were talking about different parts of the world and how it's affected, this whole coronavirus has affected different parts of the world. And they were talking about the Philippines, and this developing country, the difference in the way that we respond, and the difference as far as the new vaccine that we're getting, all that kind of stuff. They were talking about that. They think that if hopeful that maybe the Philippines will get the vaccine maybe in 2023 or 4. I said, oh, wait a minute, we have it now. The difference? Developing nation. Some of those will not get it for years. But, and then we goes on to NPR, talks about, okay, well, but with the same token, the nations like us, we are the ones that put out the money and all this kind of stuff to develop the vaccine so that they have it, so we have a right to receive it first and all that. And that debate goes on and on. But I just thought about that. What a shame that what we are experiencing now, we have hope, down the road here, not very long. Hopefully they'll say, okay, everyone 80 and over, or, maybe 75, or whether they get back to you folks, whatever. That's one of the benefits of being old, is I'm going to get the vaccine before you do. So there. Well, that's about the only thing I can think of today. But anyway, they're going to have to wait just simply because that's where they were born. No fault of their own, but just that's where they were born. Okay, anyway, welcome to this new year. New Year's Day is the one holiday that is almost universal. It is the world's most observed holiday. I hope you made your New Year's resolutions, one of which is I hope it's to be in church every Sunday. That's one of your resolutions, you've been along pretty good so far. Now, I won't ask you if you resolve to lose weight that you gained between Thanksgiving and Christmas, or if you're planning on joining a health club, or if you're going to run 5 miles a day. By the way, my goal is to run 5 miles a week. And don't laugh, that is my goal. The late Erma Bombeck made some memorial resolutions over the years. Number one, she says, I go to no doctor whose office plants have died. I'm going to follow my husband's suggestion to put a little excitement into my life by living within our budget. I'm going to apply for a hardship scholarship to Weight Watchers. And finally, I will never loan my car to anyone I've given birth to. Joke writer Mike McMahon has some words of comfort for those who are setting their resolutions. He said, don't worry about keeping these New Year's resolutions, he says at least. February is coming, Lent is coming, and you can give them up for Lent. Resolutions are good, especially if there are changes that we need to make in our lives. There's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. But I did hear about one poor guy who got out his girlfriend and got the following recording. I'm not available right now, but thank you for caring enough to call. I'm making some changes in my life. Please leave a message after the beep. If I do not return your call, you are one of the changes. Yeah, that's a good way to hear it. Dr. Les Parrott tells about a guy in Fredericksburg, Virginia, named Cliff Satterthwaite, who helped people get rid of their regrets. Each New Year's Eve, Mr. Satterthwaite sets up a booth there in Fredericksburg where those celebrating New Year's Eve can come for a moment of sober reflection. I want to put an emphasis on the sober reflection. Those who come write their regrets on a scrap of paper, then they set a match to the paper and turn them into ashes in an adjacent canister. Literally, their regrets go off and smoke. At least, that's the general idea. We could do that, actually. In fact, I've heard some churches that did something like that. We could write our regrets on a piece of paper, bring them to the altar, and watch them go up in smoke. Might be therapeutic for some of us who begin the new year. I don't know. But our text for the day from the prologue of John's Gospel puts the emphasis not on our past, but on our future. Not on our regrets, but on our possibilities. So let me read just a few select verses from this magnificent passage from John. And this was the same as last week. I guess you maybe recognize that. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that had been made. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came, that was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all received him, to those who believe in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision, or of husband's will, but born of God. I mean, what a positive theme for the new year. The prologue to John is, you see, focused not on what we have been, but even more what we are now. Rather, focused on what we are yet to be. Yet to all who receive him, to those who believe in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children of God. Now, is that really what you'd like to be, or what you really want? That you could live this next year confidently aware that your life matters, to know that God is with you, that you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Isn't that really what you would really, basically back where you really live, what you really want? To all receive him who believe in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. You see, all of us have unrealized potential. I think that's the first thing these words say, at least to me. We are children of the dust who have the potential to be children of the divine. Potential. Someone tells us seeing a young man pedaling around a college campus on a bicycle. He was wearing a t-shirt. On the t-shirt it said, I'm going to be a doctor. There was also a sign on the back of his bicycle. It read, I'm going to be Mercedes. There's a young man who understood his potential. Potential. Tony Bouson, in his book, I guess that's the way you pronounce that name, the book is entitled The Power of Verbal Intelligence. Gives us a wonderful example of potential each of us brought into the world. Now, this absolutely fascinated me. May not you, because I know we're different like that. But this whole concept fascinated me. He tells the story of the origin of the Suzuki method that has helped millions of children learn to play the violin. Have you ever heard of the Suzuki method? Beth?
Yes.
Anybody else? Here I thought, I'm proud of you, my land. I never heard about it, so here you're way ahead of me already. Anyway, it begins with a Japanese teacher, musician, instrument maker named Suzuki. Suzuki had two moments in his life when he gained life-changing insights. Suzuki's first revelation came when he was visiting a building that served as a giant incubator for thousands of Japanese songbirds known as larks. Now, larks in Japanese culture is a big deal, I guess. The breeders of these larks take literally thousands of eggs and incubate them in giant, warm, silent halls that act as gigantic nests. There's only one sound that the tiny songbirds hear as they break through the shells of their egg. Only one sound. It's the sound of another lark, a very special adult lark that is chosen because of its singing ability. Suzuki noticed to his amazement that every little chick that hatched automatically began to copy the master singer lark. Makes sense? Even more remarkably, after a few days, he observed that each chick, having started out by purely copying songs, began to develop its own variations of the original master song. So with me? The breeders wait until the chick musicians have developed their own styles and then select from them the next master singer, and so the process continues. That's the way they develop. Amen. Astounding, thought Suzuki. If a bird's tiny, tiny brain can learn so perfectly, then surely the human brain, with its vastly superior abilities, should be able to do the same or even better. This line of reasoning led Suzuki to the next revelation that every Japanese child learns to speak Japanese. Right? When Suzuki pointed this out to his friends, they all laughed assured him that they already knew that. Of course. No, declares it. They really do, and it's amazing. Suzuki was correct, says Tony Bouson. Like Newton before him, he had discovered something that was so obvious no one could see it. If that tiny baby bird born in any tiny baby, I'll get this right. Let me try one more time. That any baby born in any country within 2 years automatically learns the language of that country. Makes sense? So what if you took a baby from America, the minute they took it to Japan, what would it learn? Will it speak Japanese? Does it have the capacity to speak English? Of course. This means that every normal baby's brain is capable of learning millions of potential languages. The capacity is there. Think about that for a moment. That's amazing. Given the proper environment, the human being is capable of acquiring an amazing amount of information and skills in a very short period of time. We all have that potential. But sad thing is that most of us, we neglect that potential. It's all neglected. The ability, the potential is there, but it's neglected. And by the way, parents should not give up on a child who seems lacking in potential. Albert Einstein, they say, couldn't speak fluently even when he was 9 years old. His parents actually thought he might be mentally challenged, Albert Einstein. Children develop differently, and children are gifted in different ways. You and I came into this world having enormous mental and physical potential which many of which never realized. And that's all of it. But there's something more to this text saying. We also have the enormous untapped spiritual potential. All of us. Now, you notice that the text doesn't say that Christ came into the world so that he can improve our IQ, or that he came into the world so that we could run the 440 in a record time. It says that whoever receives Christ and believes on his name has the potential to become a child of God. We have the potential within us, every one of us, to become a child of God. Which means that you and I have the potential to be like Christ. We have the potential within our hearts and souls for peace, a potential for joy, a potential for hope, a potential for love, a potential for forgiveness that is greater than we can possibly imagine. All of us. We no longer have to live lives filled with inner conflict, anger, resentment, hatred, fear, guilt, rejection, all that stuff. We don't have to. By the power of God's Holy Spirit, we can become new people by Him. We have that potential. Now, I'm not going to get into how we realize it. I'd like to visit with you sometime about it. Some of you may be familiar with an African-American preacher by the name of Tony Evans. Dr. Evans came to know Jesus because of something that happened to his father. One night, his father gathered the family around the kitchen table, told the children, including 10-year-old Tony, that he'd given his life to Christ. Tony's father was a rough-living longshoreman in Baltimore, Maryland. He made illegal liquor in his basement. But by the grace of God, he became a different person. A few days after giving his life to Christ, he threw out all the liquor-making equipment in the basement and started a new life. Plus, there had been a lot of conflict and strife in their family. But following this genuine conversion experience, Tony's parents renewed their commitment to one another and to love one another, and the bickering between them disappeared. Through times of Bible study and prayer, the entire family began to grow together. Before there was conflict, and suddenly there was peace. Our families, Tony Evans said, became stable and strong. As a further result of his father's turnaround, Tony Evans eventually found himself following Christ to the point that he enrolled at Dallas Theological Seminary and became one of America's most best-known ministers. All the potential is always there. Sometimes it happens just that dramatically. Someone is converted and immediately they begin to follow Christ. Sometimes it happens very slowly, over time. But you and I can be more than we are. I guess that's what the bottom line is. You and I can be more than we are. It doesn't depend on our background. It doesn't depend on our physical or mental limitations. It doesn't depend on our age. Oftentimes, older folks, like myself, find themselves slowing down physically, sometimes even mentally. I can testify to that. Sometimes you wonder, didn't you remember that? Why did you forget that? But it doesn't have to be. Slow down is our ability to be children of God. We slow down, it's natural as adults that we grow older. But it doesn't have to be in our ability to be children of God. This is a gift that never fades, never fails. And we as we grow older need to remember that. This is a gift that never fades, never fails. Well-known psychologist Dr. Gordon Albert of Harvard University used to stress the importance of understanding that we are all in the process of becoming. He made massive surveys of people who had changed over the years, some for good, some for bad. He concluded that all of us have the ability to be more than we are, wherever we are in life. Every one of us has the ability to be more than we are. We're glad he discovered that, aren't we? But the writer of the Gospel of John told us that 2,000 years ago. To all who received him, who believed in his name, Christ gave the right to become children of God. The right to become children of God. kind of story. The little baby named Charles Philip Arthur George was born on November 14th, 1948 in London, England. This little 7-pound, 6-ounce boy was born to a couple named Philip and Elizabeth. When Charles was just 3 years old, his grandfather, King George VI, died. His mother then became Queen Elizabeth II. What that meant for Charles was that he would never live as a regular child. He never lived as a child. Charles instantly became what? Prince of Wales. Heir to the throne. Not because of anything he did, but because of who his mother was. From his birth, Charles possessed the title heir to the throne. And from his earliest days, it was drilled into him who he was by birth and what he was destined to become, heir to the throne, all his life. I hope you begin this new year also with a realization that you are an heir to the throne. Not because of anything you've done, just like him, but because of Christ has done in your behalf. You have enormous potential, physically, mentally. You even have greater potential spiritually. You have the right to become a child of God, and actually, by your baptism, I want you to always remember this, you are a child of God. The right to live like Christ, the right to have God as your Father, counselor, guide, that's your right. Go forth in this new year, aware of who you are and to whom you belong, because you're a child of God with enormous potential. Let us pray. Father, it's good to hear that. I guess we needed to hear that. Because we look down on ourselves sometimes. We know we aren't reaching our full potential. We know there's so much more there we could do and be, but for whatever reason, we don't. We see less than what we are. Oh God, this is a shame. Because you want so much for us. Everything out there is for us. If we'll just begin to realize who we are and follow who we are. Your child.